Mouse ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು ಸರ್ ಇಲ್ಲ arrow ಸರ್ down arrow up arrows.
Okay, right. Okay, thank you. Sorry for the slight interruption of the things. Okay, so I would like to share my thoughts on disaster and disaster management. So I have been assigned the topic on natural disasters, its definition, meaning, types, and disasters. So let me start with the thought of the day. Yesterday is a past, tomorrow is a future, but today is a gift. That's why it is called present. And we should also know that present is key to the past. That means whatever the calamities, especially natural calamities that happen now, has a key in the past. So that way, these things has to be understood. So the entire content of this talk is divided into different units: introduction, definition, classification and types of disaster, disaster management and cycle, nodal ministry of disaster. So let me start with the basic definition of the word disaster. Disaster word is originated from Greek. Dus means bad. Ast means star. The root of disaster comes from an astrological sense of a calamity blamed on the position of a planet. So that means whatever the disasters used to happen in the past, they used to blame the planet because of some astrological permutation combinations. All these things are happening. Like that, this aspect of disaster came into existence. Health sector emergency managers are concerned with public safety and public health. Are injured. The Disaster Management Act, because of all these things, the Disaster Management Act was established in the year 2005. Disaster is sudden, calamitous event, great damage, loss, destruction, and devastation to life and property. Coming to the definition of the disaster, any occurrence that causes damage, ecological disruption, loss of human life, deterioration of health and health services, sufficient warrant outside the affected community or area, particularly World Health Organization. A disaster can be defined as an occurrence, either nature or man-made, that causes human suffering and creates human needs that victim cannot alleviate without assistance. That means whenever a disaster takes place, each human being who are subjected to the disaster cannot alleviate themselves. They cannot come out of that disaster themselves. So they need some support. Okay, so that support has been done by this American Red Cross unit or other things. So disaster is an emergency in which local authorities cannot cope. The goal of emergency management is to protect public health. That is the aim of the disaster actually. So all disasters are emergencies, but not all emergencies are disasters. So alphabetically also disaster has been defined. So if you take the spelling of the word disaster, D stands for detection, I stands for incident command, S stands for safety and security. A stands for assessment. Again, S stands for support. T stands for triage and treatment. This part I am going to discuss in the second part of my lecture, what triage means and treatment, etc., etc. E stands for evaluation and R stands for recovery. So that is how alphabetically disaster is defined. Kinds of disasters. The disasters are of different categories. There is a typological one. It is either natural or man-made to vulnerability. Disaster is defined as the extent to which a community structure or geographic area is likely to be damaged by the impact of particular hazard on account of their nature, construction, proximity to hazardous terrain, etc., etc. The disasters are categorized as neither anticipated nor expected. See, suddenly it may happen. You cannot anticipate a disaster or you can expect. That is one category. Anticipated but not expected. So that means something is going to happen but not expected. So that can also happen. Anticipated and also expected. You anticipate something and you also had expectation about that one, and that has happened. So all these things are they come under different types of disasters. One minute. No government is interested to see their citizen to face the deprived situation, but of such disasters, the disaster with severe damages, mitigation has to be started. So they cannot just government see what is happening in the disaster, but they have to assess the things, what are the disaster which has created so much of damage, or how to control it, mitigate it. All these things will be followed. Disaster monitoring follows with the mitigation. There are three important steps to be followed to counter a disaster. There are preparedness, prevention, and mitigation. Prevention cannot be maintained as long as natural disasters are there. Whereas one can make the people's confidence by way of preparedness. That means all of a sudden you cannot prevent the disaster, but hoping something is going to happen in the form of disaster, we can prepare the people. So under this preparedness, the society has to be alerted with sufficient kinds of damages and means of protecting them during any kind of problems during these unexpected disasters. After the disasters, the recovery, resetting of the people, completely warranted, re-engineering, and also it also needs sufficient coordination from the people. Of all, to keep a person knowledgeable on the events to take place is the most important action. That means, so three aspects are very important during a disaster. That is, one is preparedness and prevention and mitigation. So these things have to be covered in order to counter the disasters. So there are two kinds of broadly, if we classify disasters are there, natural disasters and man-made disasters. Natural disasters mainly include droughts, earthquakes, tsunamis, forest fires, landslides and mudslides, blizzards, hurricanes, tornadoes, floods and volcanic disruptions. All these come under the umbrella of natural disasters. Man-made disasters includes hazardous substance accidents. For example, chemicals, toxic gases, eruption, radiologic accidents, that means nuclear radiations, dam failures, resource shortage, for example, food, electricity and water shortage, structural fire and explosions, and domestic disturbances, for example, terrorism, bombing and riots, bioterrorism, explosions, fires, toxic materials, pollution, civil unrest, that means riots and demonstrations, and terrorist attacks. All these are man-made. Throughout the history, both natural and man-made disasters have disrupted food and water supplies and salutation, causing communicable diseases, injury, illness, and death. Sometimes we may have both man-made and also natural. That's mixed type of disasters. So major natural disasters, what we have listed is flood, cyclone, drought, earthquake. Minor natural disasters mainly include cold wave, thunderstorms, heat wave, mudslides. So natural disasters, they have been categorized into types and subtypes. So they are mainly due to biological activities, geological or geophysical activities, and hydrometeorological processes. That includes hydrological and meteorological. So these are all the natural disaster categories. Under them, types include, for example, if you take biological, epidemic. Epidemic means what? What kind of epidemics you can expect during a disaster is viral infectious disease. This is a natural disaster. Bacterial infectious disease, parasitic infectious disease, fungal infectious disease, prion infectious disease, then insect infestation, animal stampede. Okay, so these things, they come under biological disaster category. Coming to the geophysical or geological, earthquakes, volcano, they come under natural disaster category. And also mass movement. Mass movement can be dry and wet. The dry mass movement mainly includes rockfall, landslides, avalanche, especially in glaciated areas, subsidence, etc., etc. Hydrogeological or hydrological process also give rise to certain type of disasters. They are mainly flood, that is due to water. Flood could be general flood or storm surge or coastal flood. And here also mass movement takes place in wet condition. Rockfall, landslide, avalanche, subsidence, all these under wet mass movement can take place. Coming to the meteorological, that is atmospheric controlled natural disaster, we have storm. Storm includes tropical cyclones, extratropical cyclones, local storms. And climatological, this includes extreme temperature. For example, if you are in outside of the city, in a very calm campus like Mysore, I am now in University of Mysore campus. Here the temperature is very moderate. If I move towards the central part of the city area, where heat islands are created, always, especially during summer, I have witnessed 1 or 2 degree temperature difference will be there between the campus and the city area. So that means climatological also can result in natural disaster. So extreme temperature, heat waves, cold waves, extreme winter conditions, whenever it goes to extreme temperature, all these things will happen. In addition, you have drought and wildfire, forest fires, land fire. So all these things, they come under natural disaster categories. See here, earthquake, how it has devastated things. You can see through these pictures. Earthquake can damage vehicles, buildings, roads, everything. They get disrupted. So sometimes if the severity is more, all these things can happen. And volcanic eruption. See, volcanic eruption takes place in certain areas of the globe itself. Okay, and whenever the volcano erupts, in the sense magma will be there deep beneath the earth. Okay, because of buoyancy, it comes up. That means density decreases, it comes up through vents and erupts outside the volcanic area. Okay, so when this happens, it is a hot material. We call it as lava. The temperature will be around 1200 to 1300 degrees centigrade. It flows. So if surrounding human habitation is there, it attacks it. So they cannot withstand the temperature, and many kinds of disaster can take place because of volcanic eruption. See, volcanic eruption, earthquake, all these things, they are controlled by the dynamic actions of the planet Earth. Okay, so I'm going to discuss this one in my later slides. So in the meteorological disasters, we have flood. Mostly it occurs between June and September. And tsunami. Tsunami is a kind of earthquake itself. What happens in the oceanic area? See, entire globe is having two parts. One is the continental crustal part, another one is the oceanic crustal part. Continental crustal part, thickness on an average, it is around 30 to 35 kilometers from the surface. Oceanic crustal part is beneath the water level in the ocean, it is 10 to 12 kilometers. That means both these crusts, whether continental or oceanic crusts. They are made up of rocks, different kinds of rocks, that's all. One is a light density rock, other one is a heavy density rock. See, what happens whenever there is a movement of the plates, that means the entire globe is divided into 7 major plates, and these plates, they can converge, they can diverge, they can transform with each other. So what happens during convergence? If 2 continental plates are involved, they hit against each other and result in the earthquake. Suppose if the same thing happens within the ocean area, in the oceanic crust, displacement takes place and lot of energy is released that will act on the water that is above it. So causing huge waves and other things, and it will hit the coastal areas. That way tsunamis are created. So because of this flood and tsunami, a disaster can occur, and also cyclone and hurricane, they also contribute for this disaster. Tropical storm with strong winds can create typhoon, and also storm with strong winds and snow can create blizzard. So these things can happen in different areas, especially typhoon we can expect in United States of America, Philippines, they have been reported. Okay, and hailstorms and snowstorm. Hailstorm, see, whenever there is a sudden drop in the temperature in the atmosphere, suddenly we receive hailstorms. Okay, they fall onto the surface and cause damages. That is also a kind of disaster. In the snowy area, snowstorm can take place, and that also contribute for the disaster situation. In these things, whatever I discussed now, they are all natural disasters that take place on the surface of the earth. But there are disasters which are due to extraterrestrial impact, like meteorites. See, meteorites means we are, if you see the solar system, different planets are there, and asteroids are there, comets are there, all these constitute a solar system. See, what happened? Entire solar system is formed out of a hot, tenuous mass of gas, which we call it as nebula, about 4,500 million years ago. Okay, so when such things happen, different planets were formed. But some of the material could not form planet. They are found between Mars and Jupiter. They are called as asteroids. Lots of asteroid bodies are there in between Mars and Jupiter. So whenever there is a perturbation in the gravity in that region, some of them, they enter into the orbit of different planets. If they enter into the orbit of Earth, they fall onto the surface of the Earth. Okay, while falling, they will have a friction with the atmosphere. So what happens? Because of the friction, they may burn. Say, some people say shooting star is falling. In the earlier days in the villages, they used to tell somebody is going to die because star is falling. No star will fall. Okay, this is because of the asteroid body which enters into the orbit of any planet or the moon also and the earth. So whenever it comes into the gravity of the earth, it falls, it takes its course, and it interacts, or it will have a friction with the atmosphere and burns and glows. Sometimes some of the material of these chunks, they may reach the surface of the earth. We call them as meteorites fall and finds. When huge meteorites hit the earth surface, that happened during the geological past, entire dinosaurs, they got vanished because of the hit of these meteorites. So nowadays, we don't see such kind of big meteorites falling onto the surface of the earth. However, the disaster can take place because of the fall of the meteorites also. Same thing happened in Russia in the year 2013 in Chelyabinsk area. A meteorite fell on some area, and it damaged many things, and it injured so many public people also. So like that, disaster cannot be just confined to the earth. There can be disasters which are extraterrestrial in nature also. So coming next to the disasters can be natural or disasters can be man-made. Major man-made disasters include setting of fires, epidemics, deforestation, pollution due to prawn cultivation. See what happens. Pollution of both surface and groundwater, surface water and groundwater takes place due to the pollutions that are released during the prawn cultivation. Then what happens to the soil? It will increase the salinity of the soil. And what happens then? It reduces the soil fertility. That way, pollution made by man can be due to prawn cultivation also. Chemical pollution will be there. Say, discharge of some chemical pollutants directly to the river. In some areas, it is happening. So that will contaminate the flow of the pure water will get contaminated. And if anybody consumes that, then it will follow. Sometimes a lot of people may continuously take this water and then they suffer. So it is a man-made disaster only. And during wars, you know very well what happens during wars. It is a man-made disaster. Minor man-made disasters includes what? Road or train accidents, riots that takes place because of some problems, social problems, food poisoning. Food poisoning, see what happened nowadays, recently in Mysore district itself, in one of the temple, because of some differences among the management people within the temple, during some festival, their food was poisoned and distributed as prasadam to all the devotees. Nearly some 15 to 20 people died because of that. So this is a man-made disaster. So food poisoning, industrial disaster, crisis, environmental pollution, all these aspects that are created by man and they come under man-made disaster. That could be major or minor in nature. Primary agents, disaster agents mainly includes primary and secondary agents. Primary agents include falling buildings, heat, wind, rising water and smoke. Secondary agents include bacteria and viruses that produce contamination or infection after the primary agent has caused injury or destruction. The environment will also get affected because of the disasters. They could be through physical factors, chemical factors, biological factors, social factors, psychological factors. Disasters are incubated by these agents independently or collectively. They act, agents acting independently or collectively, that can happen. The agents could be social, political, environmental, or underdevelopment factors. So disasters can happen in these because of these things: social, political, environmental, and underdevelopment factors also. How the agents act individually and collectively to create disaster depends on the context within which they occur. Usually, the host of a disaster is the humankind. Age, sex, immunization status, pre-existing health, degree of mobility, emotional stability, all these, they constitute the host. So, any disaster, if you say it is very risky, means it will have two things. One is the hazard, and because of this hazard, what is the vulnerability? How much it is sensitive to that hazard. So that gives the risk for the particular disaster. For example, an earthquake hazard of the same magnitude in a sparsely populated village of Rajasthan and in the densely populated city of Delhi will cause different levels of damage to human lives, property, and economic activities. So that way, hazard and vulnerability, they play a very important role during risk. So as this example goes, in a most populated village or a sparsely populated village of Rajasthan, it is very less, whereas it's effectively more in the densely populated area like Delhi or Bombay or other cities. So this will cause different levels of damage to human lives, property, and economic activities. So there is two types of emergencies are there. One is a non-disaster emergency, another one is disaster emergency. So now if you see the physiographic aspect of India and related disaster, India is a subcontinent with wider landscapes and manifested with number of major hills and rivers, plateau and dense forest. The geological and clones geographical information in India are so weak and non-resistive to disasters. By area, India is the landmass that is susceptible to all types of physiographic forms. In India, we have huge mountains, huge hills, rivers, glaciers, all aspects are within this landmass. It is the sixth largest country in the world with a share of 135.79 million square kilometers. That is, this amounts to 2.4% of world's surface area. Whereas the population in India, within this small area, it goes up to 16.4%. So you can imagine the difference between the area distribution and the population. So in the north and in the northeastern parts, they are the youngest mountain chain. Himalaya is highly susceptible to earthquake, landslides, and avalanches. Why? Because why we call Himalaya as a youngest mountain? It formed around 70 million years ago. Okay, this Himalaya is formed because of plate tectonic activity. That means Indian plate is moving towards the northeastern direction and it is hitting the Tibetan plate. When two continent plates hit each other, it results in the folded mountain. That folded mountain is the Himalaya. So here, since this process is going on, hitting each other and releasing stress always, it is susceptible to earthquake and landslides also. And because of lot of glaciers and other things in that region, avalanches do occur in such areas. See here, this is the physical divisions of India. This is the physical features. You can see the southern part of India is the peninsular India, okay, bounded by Eastern Ghats and Western Ghats. And to the northern part of India, we have Indo-Gangetic alluvium from central to northern part. And in the northeastern part and also the part of Trans-Himalayas and Western, all these are extra-peninsular India. Extra-peninsular India is prone to many kind of disasters compared to the peninsular India. And of course, Indo-Gangetic alluvium is more prone to floods and other things that I will discuss later on. So here, this is the photograph showing how the physiographic divisions of India are there. Indo-Gangetic plain is prone to floods as well as drought. Northwestern part of India is prone to drought and desertification, Thar deserts and other things, while coastal regions are prone to tsunamis and cyclones. This is how our Indian subcontinent or India is having areas which are more prone to disasters. In other words, the country is susceptible to all types of disasters. So we can have earthquakes, we can have droughts, we can have floods, we can have cyclones, tsunamis, landslides, avalanches, desertification, forest fires, and industrial and vehicle accidents. Either it could be road accident, rail accident, or air accident. In the world, 90% of the disasters occur in developing countries. Okay. In addition to that, we have disasters that are due to extraterrestrial material that hit the surface of the earth. But fortunately, we are not prone to that one because most of these meteorites, they fall in the hemisphere region, northern hemisphere or the southern hemisphere region, rather than other parts of the globe. So that way, very rarely we see these things. And even volcanism, we are free from volcanism except in Andaman Nicobar Island. There it is subjected to volcanoes that erupted long back. Now it is not so. So that way India is prone to many of the disasters. So in India, 70% area is drought prone. It is drought prone, 60% earthquake prone, 12% flood prone, and 8% cyclone prone. These percentage figures show that there is need of trained manpower. See, when the disasters are taking place one after another in one way or the other form, we have to save ourselves. For that, we need trained manpower that can assist at the time of disaster, as well as in planning of schemes. See, these two things are very important. We have to plan for the disaster and we have to assist during the time of disaster. We have to monitor the disasters and manage the disasters. So all these things has to be done because our country is more prone to different kinds of disasters. In the present context of changing technological scenario, there is urgent need of trained manpower for the oil industry as well as government or innovative organization. So as we have the Himalayan plate of world surface 4% as an overriding plate boundary and subsiding plate boundary of Malaysian Peninsula, we have to face frequently the natural disasters. So as I told you, the entire globe is divided into 7 major plates. One of the plate is the Indian plate, okay, and the Tibetan plate, or these two plates, when they collide with each other, both are continental plates and they are having same density, so they get folded, results in the formation of the Himalayan mountain range. Okay, so whenever this happens, we are always prone to these activities or the dynamic actions of this young mountain that always results in earthquake or related activities. The devastative type of disasters is basically accounted to be of 2 types, namely natural and anthropogenic, man-made. Natural disasters are those occurring beyond the control of human beings and virtually not predictable, whereas the anthropogenic disasters are of those taking place due to human interventions and activities like road, rail, air, and industrial accidents. So, compared to the natural disasters, at least we can predict the anthropogenic disasters and come out with solutions for them. Disaster management and cycle. See, disaster has to be managed properly. Otherwise, it will result in another disaster itself. See, for example, what is this disaster management? If you observe carefully, there are 4 aspects are involved. One is the preparedness. Another one is the response. How we are going to respond for the disaster and how we are going to come out of that one. That is recovery and mitigation. How to control this disaster. See, in the preparedness, we have to have activities prior to a disaster. For example, preparedness includes plans, emergency exercises, training, warning systems, etc. See, for example, if the people are living in the earthquake-prone area, say for example, in Himalayas itself, they should be given exercises or training how to prepare yourself, how to escape yourself because of these disasters. Response includes activities during a disaster. So disaster has happened. Okay. So at that time, people should be made aware of what has happened because it should reach each and everyone. Public warning system should be there. Emergency operation should be there. Emergency search and rescue operation should be there. So that is how we have to respond for a disaster. Recovery includes activities following a disaster. That means disaster has happened and activities have started and how to follow it. That means temporary housing. Many people become shelterless. Shelterless, they will lose their houses and other things, properties, and so many things will happen. So they should be given temporary housing. Claims processing and grants. So they should, whatever the processing of the claims and grants are there, they should be given. Long-term medical care and counseling has to be given. Okay, for example, if anything happens, particularly due to nuclear radiations burst out, that's what happened in Russia, and also during war when the Hiroshima was bombed, so much of radiation took place. So still it is haunting the people there. It has entered the fertile system and spoiling the things. But people are living. We have to face such situations. We have to come out of that one through long-term medical care and counseling. This is what is recovery. Mitigation means mitigation activities that reduces the effects of disasters. So how to control the disaster? That means that kind of activities we should have which reduces the effects of disaster. For example, building codes and zoning. That means, suppose if you want to construct a building in a earthquake prone area, then one has to follow properly building construction code given by the government. So you should not violate such things. So because if you follow those things, that will help us during the time of disasters. Vulnerability analysis. So how much this area is vulnerable for what kind of disaster? That has to be assessed. Okay, and people should be educated on these things. Okay, then only we can control the disasters. This is how the management of disaster has to be done. That means we have to prepare ourselves, we have to respond for the disasters, we have to recover from the disaster effect, and we have to control the disasters. All these things are involved in a disaster management. So phases of disaster management, as I told you, preparedness phase will be there, then response phase will be there, then recovery phase, then mitigation phase. Principles of disaster management to prevent the occurrence of disaster whenever possible. So natural disasters, it is very difficult to prevent, but at least man-made can be somehow prevented through the occurrence of disaster whenever that is possible. So minimize the number of casualties if the disasters cannot be prevented. So we should see that that means shifting of people from one place to another place. Whenever there is an alert for the flood, immediately people should be made to shift from one place to another place to the safety places so that disaster will not affect them. Prevent further casualties from occurring after the initial impact of the disaster. See what happens if any earthquake takes place, we will have an aftermath. That means earthquake, first it will have some say 6.5 intensity on the scale. So next day also it may have some earthquake effect. Waves may enter, okay. So like that, it slowly get reduced. So that means aftermath of the things should be carefully addressed so that we can control the casualties. So that means prevent further casualties from occurring after the initial impact of the disaster. And next thing is, in the disaster management principle, one of the things is rescue the victims. That's most important thing. Provide first aid to the injured. Evacuate the injured to medical facilities. See, wherever the facility is there, it's okay. In certain areas, no facility will be there. Then they have to be arranged for it. So that type of thing and other things we will discuss later. Provide definitive medical care. That's most important thing. Promote reconstruction of lives. That is because so for example, if there is any landslides or flood, many people may lose their houses, shelters. So they have to be saved. So that means their entire life will get shattered during that time. So it has to be reconstructed. Mitigation, how to control. Control means working with local, state, and federal agencies in identifying disaster risks and developing disaster prevention strategies through extensive public education in disaster prevention and readiness. To plan effectively for disaster prevention, the nurse, their place is very important. They needs to have community assessment information, including knowledge of community resources. What are the emergency services available in that particular area, where the hospitals are located and where the clinics are located. See, these nurses, they have a very important role during these kind of disasters. Community health personnel, they should know. Nurses, doctors, pharmacists, emergency medical teams, dentists and volunteers, all these people will have a combined work to come out of the disasters. Community government officials and local industry. So it is a highly integrated mitigation work to be done. Preparedness, personal preparedness, stress and conflict among disaster workers. This is most important thing. See, persons who are involved in the disaster relief work, they should have been trained to control the stress and conflict among disaster workers, because they have gone for the relief work. If they themselves started fighting, means it's going to be meaningless. So that's why personal preparedness is also very important. Then professional preparedness. That means how to obtain the license for something, equipment, personal equipment, such as a stethoscope. It should be available immediately. A flashlight should be available, and extra batteries, cash, warm clothing, and heavy jacket or weather appropriate clothing, record keeping materials, pocket sized reference books. All these things they should get prepared. So all these things come under professional preparedness. Then you will have a community preparedness, where participation of the relief workers should be there completely. Role in preparedness within the employing organization. Help initiate or update the disaster plan, provide educational programs and material regarding disasters specific to the area, and organize disaster drills. So these things has to be done employing in organization, within that organization. Community health nurse, she provides, and health nursing means it provides an updated record of vulnerable populations within the community. Individualized strategies should be reviewed, including the availability of specific resources in the event of an emergency. Leader, an intimate knowledge of the institution and familiarity with the individual who work there. So, leader should have this prior knowledge of the people who are around him and people who are working with him, all those things. Because persons with disaster management training, and especially those who have served on real disasters, make valuable members of any preparedness team as well. That means leader should have a broad thinking. So, he should widely consider the people who have already experienced in these real disasters. They should become the member of this and work towards the preparedness. They should have their role in the preparedness. As a community advocate, should always seek to keep a safe environment, recalling that disasters are not only natural but also man-made. Nurse in the community has an obligation to assess for and report environmental health hazards. Apart from these, other things include what community resources will be available after a disaster strikes, and most important. Okay, so that means a disaster has happened in particular area. It could be a flood, it could be an earthquake, or it could be volcanic activity, or it could be a landslide, which is happening nowadays in different areas. Okay, so what community resources to counter this? What are the resources available in that region? That basic knowledge we should have. How the community will work together, that's important. Next, what should occur before, during, and after the response, and his or her role within the plan. So these things should be considered. Community health nurse who seeks greater involvement or a more in-depth understanding of disaster management can become involved in any number of community organizations that are part of the official response team, such as the Red Cross, Salvation Army, or emergency medical system, or ambulance corps. So if they are associated with these things, it will be very good, because they serve better during the they can manage better during the disaster. Response, it includes community assessment, case finding and referring, prevention, health education, surveillance, and working with aggregates. Local and regional emergency and public health resources can be readjusted as assessment reports continue to come in. For example, shelter management, responsibility of a local Red Cross, building of tent cities, assessing and referring, ensuring medical needs, providing first aid, serving meals, which is most important during the disaster event, keeping patient records, ensuring emergency communications and transportation, and providing a safe environment. So we have to respond through these kind of things for a disaster. See, a disaster impact and response, it includes search, rescue, and first aid. That's most important thing. Field care and triage. Triage, I am going to discuss about triage in the next part of my talk. Triage and tagging. Identification of dead. So there is a procedure to be followed during a disaster so that not much bad things should not happen. That way it is controlled. Disaster impact and response. Actions taken in anticipation of, during, and immediately after impact to ensure that its effects are minimized and that people are given immediate relief and support. A set of principles which provide a framework for managing any event includes command, control, coordination, communication, clinical management, continuity, and capability. That means how we have to respond to a disaster is through these points we should understand properly and do it. So things has to be commanded, controlled, and coordination has to be built, and communication should not be left out. It should be very much communicated between the people, and any clinical management is there depending upon the condition of the person who is injured during the disaster has to be taken care, and continuity and capability should be followed. International relief efforts includes Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies and the International Committee of Red Cross are as health representatives from the WHO. Psychological stress of disaster workers. This is also a very important thing. The degree of worker stress depends on the nature of the disaster, role in the disaster, individual stamina. That is most important thing. The person who is into relief work should have a good stamina, and other environmental factors also they play a very important role. That means depending upon the nature of the disaster, his role in the disaster will be decided. So that way one has to be psychologically, he should be able to overcome the stress during the disaster and do the work. Environmental factors includes noise, lot of noise, maybe their inadequate workspace. He has to counter it. He has to counter the noise. If there is any noise, as though he's not listening to anything, he should work. Inadequate workspace should be is a problem to the many of the relief workers. Physical danger and stimulus overload, stress and mood swings, frustration and conflict. So all these they come under environmental factors. So one has to gear up for these things so that he can control all these aspects and involved in the relief efforts. How to come out of the disaster? Disaster recovery mainly includes flexibility, community cleanup efforts. Otherwise, post-disaster effects will be there. Epidemics may start. So many other things will lead because of the disaster. So one has to recover from that. Release of continuing threat. That means it may happen again like that. That the threat will be in the minds or psychology. It becomes a psychological feeling of the people in that area. So that has to be controlled. They should come out of that. That way one should work. Teaching proper hygiene. This is most important because things have damaged means our underground drainage lines or many other things might have damaged and resulted in unhygienic condition. During that period, they should strive for the hygienic. They should do some hygienic work and see that things are coming to order. That means they are recovered. They are recovered from the disaster. That way, short-term psychological support. Okay, you should strengthen their mind so that they should not get afraid or scared of the things. Alert for environmental health hazards. For environmental health hazards, they should be very alert, and the relief worker should do the home visits also and inquire about each and everyone, and so that these things will help the victims to recover from the disaster. Okay, shall we break for the tea and we will continue after this. One minute, I will.
So, video,